Hi there, Pastor Stephen here. As you can tell, I'm not in Hampton Falls, New Hampshire today. I'm actually on vacation visiting family down in North Carolina. We left straight from church camp on last Sunday and drove down here. We're enjoying good family time of vacation away for about a week and a half. So we look forward to getting back and seeing you all. But I couldn't resist not doing a Monday encouragement from the Psalms because the Lord has just been bubbling something in my heart and in my soul that I wanted to share with you. So as you know, we've been doing the Psalms as a primary encouragement for the better part of the spring and the summer. And if you've been reading the Psalms throughout your life or during this particular season, you'll notice that 71 times the word Selah appears right in the middle of a psalm or right at the end of a psalm, and sometimes multiple times in the same psalm. 74 times in the entire Bible. The other three come in Habakkuk chapter 3. But 71 times the word Selah appears in the Psalms. And so as I've been on vacation this week, the word Selah has come up in my own personal psalm reading, but it's also just come up as something in my soul of what could Selah mean for the church today? And what does it mean for me? And what could it mean for you as a Christian? So I want to encourage us today with an investigation and a reflection on the Psalms, particularly from the word Selah that shows up throughout the 150 Psalms, 71 times. So what does Selah mean? In all honesty, scholars don't really know for sure. It's kind of a mystery. No one knows exactly what Selah means. But I think there's three good guesses that if you put them all together, I think they get to the spirit of what the Selahs mean in the Psalms and what David and the other psalmists were getting at when they inserted Selah into the Psalms. So the first option here is this one. Think of it as, one translation translates it as an intermission. So think of Selah as an intermission. Most of us grew up in an era before Netflix or before Hulu, where when you were watching a TV show, you had to wait from 1 week to the next to see how a show was going to continue. So you couldn't just watch two shows back to back. You actually had to wait a whole week. And it was kind of like an intermission, so to speak, in a TV show. So usually at the end of a show, it would say, come back next week at 7 p.m. to see the dramatic conclusion to this story. And you have to wait a whole week. Or think about going to like a long movie. I remember going to see the movie Titanic back when I was a teenager. It was like 3.5 hours long enough to where when you were in the movie theater, they actually had a 10-minute intermission in the movie theater to give you a break, just to go to the bathroom and to get some popcorn or just to not miss anything, so you don't have to get up. And what are you doing as you're taking that break, but you're thinking about what the movie has done up to that point, and you're thinking about what may happen next? Or think about the same thing when you go to a Broadway show or to a musical or to the symphony. There's almost always an intermission. And what it is an invitation to pause, to think about what's just been sung or what you've seen or what you've heard, to let your mind and your heart absorb it, not be overwhelmed with it, but to process it healthily before moving on to the second part. So Selah is like an intermission. So I encourage you, if you're reading the Psalms and you come across a Selah, take that as an opportunity just to stand up, go look out the window, look at a pretty tree or a flower, and just reflect. Take a moment just to have a break. Or just stay seated, close your eyes, put the Bible away for a moment, and just think about and reflect upon or meditate on what was just said in the psalm. So that's the first option, intermission. Second option is more of a musical option. And so this is more of you could translate it as an interlude, a musical interlude. You'll see that many of the psalms that include Selahs, actually at the beginning of the psalm, it'll say something like a psalm of David to be done with stringed instruments. And so you may know that the Psalms were actually meant to be sung. It was actually the original songbook of the Bible. So the earliest followers of Yahweh would actually sing the Psalms as a way of getting them into deep in their heart, as a way of praising God through the scriptures, through singing the Psalms. Jesus would have done this. They were his favorite book to read. He quotes it often. And I can just picture him and his family singing the Psalms there in Galilee. And so think of it as a musical interlude. So whenever you're singing a song and then it goes into more of an instrumental part where there's no lyrics and it's just a guitar playing or a piano playing, think of that as a musical interlude. And that's kind of what Selah is inviting us into. It's inviting us into this experience of soaking in what we've just read and sung before moving on to the next part. So in our Sunday morning worship services, Ellen Pond has been doing a beautiful job of an instrumental meditation, which is placed usually right before the sermon and invites us to think about and to reflect upon and to pray about what we've just experienced in worship before coming to the Lord in response and to come before him in his word, in the sermon. That's the second option, musical interlude. The third option is just simply an invitation to stop or to pause or to think about these things. Dale Edwards, you may know, is the regional minister of the American Baptist churches of Vermont and New Hampshire. He oversees all the pastors and churches that are American Baptist in Vermont and New Hampshire. And he's a pastor of pastors, a minister of ministers, a shepherd of shepherds. He was at my ordination and gave a reflection to me as I was being ordained, same to Pastor Grant and same to many others throughout our region. He's a wonderful man. He was doing pandemic reflections a couple times a month during the heart of this pandemic. And one of them early on in March or April talked about how the pandemic could be viewed as a great pause, as a chance for the church to Selah, to step back and to reflect upon what is happening in our world, to listen to the voice of the Lord, to ask him what is required of us, and to move forward only after listening intently to him. And he ended his reflection that day with this one poignant phrase in this line. It says, it's a prayer really, it was a Selah prayer. May this great pause also be a great cleansing. And so that's the invitation for us as Christians and through the Psalms here in these Selahs, is to enter into the Psalms with a spirit of pause, of stopping, of listening, of being in rhythm with his music, of pausing in an intermission before we just go from one thing to the next, to listen to the voice of the Lord and to really hear what he's saying. Oftentimes these Selahs are right after an intense moment that the psalmist has of confession or repentance or complaint before God. And then there's a Selah. And then usually it's followed up with something very different, a very different tone. It's almost like the psalmist put himself before God and said, but whatever your will be done, just like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. So to practice this, I'd like to finish by reading Psalm 3. And may this be an invitation for us to see how Selahs work in the Psalms, and then for you to even practice this with Psalm 3, both now and today. So here's the word of the Lord, Psalm 3. We'll finish with this. A Psalm of David. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. Selah. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. Selah. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of my many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people. Selah.